You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All right, and welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Derek, and I'm joined, as always, by your co-hosts, Kevin and Alex. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Another fun weekend of basketball, right? The Final Four is set. Beer league softball kicked off this past Friday, so that's always fun. Spring is here. Like all these little indications that spring is here. We're getting after it. The weather is slowly starting to get a bit nicer. Baseball is quickly approaching opening day, and NHL and NBA playoffs are right around the corner. So really good time of year, on top of the fact that, we are a month away from the draft. So that's super exciting, as we continue to build up to that, and then even more so after that, because then we get into all sorts of fun stuff, whether it's more team breakdowns, whether it is dynasty drafts and kind of where some of these players we think are going to get slotted for dynasty purposes right after we know their landing spots. So lots of fun stuff coming up, man. But I'm loving it. It's a fun time right now.
Yeah, the NCAA tournament is definitely living up to its trademarked moniker of March Madness. You've got what is it? A 9, 2 5s, and a 4 in the Final Four. So looking forward to see how that mess works its way out. Little sidebar, because I know we got a lot of stuff to get to, so I'll just say this. I'm in a group with two other friends where we each filled out 25 brackets, and we pay out, first, top 10 or whatever places it is. And so you make 25 brackets. Of the 75 brackets that the three of us filled out, one of them has a national champion still alive. One of them was a UConn national champion. The rest of it just looks like carnage. It's just carnage up and down. No national champions left. A lot of them are. That is as many points as you're going to get. Like if you can finalize them out, there's no more scoring on those brackets. I believe 5 of them still have an opportunity to get points. So 75 brackets, 70 of them are done scoring as we get to the Final Four, and that should tell you everything you need to know, which you will probably already do know if you've been watching this tournament. It has been chaos.
Yeah, I saw, I think it was on Facebook. It was one of those little pop-ups, like 1 out of the 20 million, 22 million, whatever brackets had the Elite 8 correct. 1.
Wow.
According to ESPN. Now, I haven't seen it updated for the Final Four to see if that same guy had the Final Four right, but it's just bonkers. This year has been so crazy. It goes towards the parity that a lot of the high-level analysts that follow so much college basketball were saying, and it played right on into the tournament. So it's been exciting because you get to see some of these smaller schools, some big upsets, some really tightly contested games. It's been very entertaining, even if you're not a fan of a team or such. Outside of watching UConn play, these games are close, right? UConn's blowing the doors off of everybody, and outside of that, like hold on to your seat and get your popcorn ready, because you're going to be entertained for the entire game that you're watching.
I'm gonna put both of it. I'll put all 3 of us on the spot here. Of the Final Four teams remaining, who's your national champion? Who's coming out of this carnage?
I can't go against UConn right now. I like the way this Miami team's playing. I like their heart, but UConn is just unloading on teams. Like, they are taking no prisoners. They seem to just be the team that has peaked. Like, out of all this, I don't want to say mediocrity. Parity is the word I think I'm looking for. Out of all this parity that this tournament was, UConn has kind of set themselves up as we're the team who's peaking the most at the right time. And that's not to take away from Miami or San Diego State or FAU, because you obviously have to peak to get to the Final Four. But UConn has done it with style, just blitzing teams. And they're the one team in the Final Four who you can arguably say shouldn't have lost the game somewhere along the way, right? We were talking about that pre-show. FAU should have lost against Memphis. San Diego State arguably could have lost against Creighton. And, the Miami-Texas game, Texas had them by 13 and then just went ice cold down the stretch. So, UConn dominated every single round. I don't see a reason at the moment why I would pick any team besides them.
Yeah, it's hard to pick against them. They've been just, it's like they're playing every other team's JV squad, like they've looked so good. So yeah, I would have to lean towards UConn as well, but it will be interesting to see a Florida Atlantic San Diego State game for a trip to the national championship.
Right.
I'm taking FAU.
Yeah.
I like them too. I do.
Yeah.
I'm not impressed with Creighton.
San Diego State.
Staying it. Why do I keep doing that?
But
Aztecs. Yeah,
there you go. Very interesting though to kind of watch some of that where it's kind of going down the stretch there and really kind of how they've been playing out there. But certainly this is most of the time you tend to get a little bit more top heavy when you get into the actual Final Four. You see, a 1, 2 seed, 3 seed, not this year, right? Like 4 seed, 2 5 seeds, a 9 seed. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy when you really look at that and see some of the contrasts there. Whereas unlike a lot of other sports, you tend to have that very top heavy in the, especially through this tournament type of play where you really see these teams just kind of cement themselves and emerge. Not this year, and certainly not with this sport. So very interesting. Well, any other thoughts here on any of the happenings? Or we ready to start breaking down some draft prospects?
Let's get to it.
I think I'm ready, man. Nothing seemed to really shake the boat, if you will, right?
All right, I like it. So we've gone through several of the other positions already. We're going to hit up the wide receivers and get going through that. You can find a lot of the individual player breakdowns over on the YouTube channel. Head over there, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. That's the best way to support this independent podcast. Is over there on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@goodoldboysff. And of course, you can find us on all the other socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, @goodoldboysff. Lots of great content over there as well. And definitely interact with us through any of those other platforms there as well. But let's go ahead and get into it. I've got the first receiver of the night here, and we're going to start off here with Jordan Addison, wide receiver, 5'11", 173 junior out of USC by way of, as Alex likes to say, Pitt, transfer over to USC this past year there. And Jordan Addison is a wide receiver with really good hands, has really good speed and cutting ability. When he's going into his routes, has the kind of that hip dip and can get through and really make some very, very good routes and very good cuts. He's probably one of the best route runners in this class when it comes to wide receiver. He can be pretty slippery. He can be elusive. And when he's making those cuts, he can make those DBs kind of open up their hips and get separation going through those cuts there as well, and then kind of run past them. Has really good concentration when it comes to bringing in the ball. But he is a small framed guy there, 5'11", 173, really kind of projects out to be a slot type of receiver, which that'll be some versatility issues in this, right? Like he's not going to be a guy that necessarily is going to be able to play the X much on there, get to the outside, things like that. But, slot receiver, big DBs with that frame can give him some issues, especially up in press coverage, getting off the line, things like that. Contested catches could be a bit of an issue there as well, right? Like, just trying to box people out, trying to get around that. Like, he doesn't have the frame necessarily to do that, but he should be a first round talent when it's all said and done. I've got him going towards kind of the back half of the first round here. I think the Vikings will potentially make a play there, and I think the Ravens could make a play for this guy here as well.
All right. Jalin Hyatt, a wide receiver out of Tennessee, 6 foot, 176-pound junior for the Vols. Jalin Hyatt is electric. Ran a 4.31 40, absolutely blazing speed. He has some longer arms, right? So he plays a little bit bigger than his 6 foot height. And that 176 frame has the ability to put some more muscle on the way he's kind of shaped out. So if he's getting into an NFL weight room, that obviously will help him. But his game is speed here at the moment, right? He was dang near impossible to single cover in 2022 for Tennessee. So you can tell where teams are going to use him to try and take the top off of defenses. He does a good job getting underneath and chasing those long balls down. So we should see some home run plays out of Jalin Hyatt. I like him for best ball already, just because you get some of those home run plays, and you can kind of work him in towards possibly season long, depending on where he's going to go. I think his biggest, some of his flaws are he's still a little raw, right? He has one good season at Tennessee under his belt. His route tree was rather limited. He wasn't doing overly complex things at Tennessee. So NFL teams are going to have to work on him a little bit instead of running, go routes, deep ins, deep outs. Now he's going to be, working some more on his curls, maybe some slants, some sluggos, that type of thing to really diversify how he's going to be effective for the NFL. As good as Hyatt is, I think he's more of a day two guy. I could see him going kind of that middle to late second round, but it is possible that he slips into the very top of the third, just depending on how the draft shakes out. But nevertheless, I think he's a good project to have, right? He has the raw ability. It's just putting all the pieces together. And in the right system, I think you're going to have a guy who could be fantasy relevant the back end of his rookie year. But if he falls into more of a run-heavy scheme, I do think that's going to drastically hurt his fantasy draft stock, because he's not going to be able to get enough reps and truly develop into a well-rounded wide receiver, unlike being on a more of a pass-first offense, kind of like the Chiefs.
All right, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver, 6'1", 196, the junior from Ohio State. Got to see him play quite a bit, and he played on that potent, high-powered offense that was Ohio State's, and really benefited from the fact that, any time that, his offense was on the field, there wasn't a defense that could really, match what they offered. And that opened up a lot of things for Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Plays in the slot, and the read on him is able to shake and separate underneath. And he does have some speed to get past the defense. Was able to average close to 200 yards per game in the last 5 games of 2021, which is pretty good considering that's against Big Ten competition the whole way out. So he's able to track deep throws with poise and accuracy. The problem with that, doesn't really have that top end speed to win vertically. So quarterbacks are going to have to throw him open, which they did well there at Ohio State. They threw him open quite a bit. But he can make the catches. I see him as I think based on his pedigree, he might sneak into the first round. And if he does, it's late first round, because a lot of these teams not really looking for wideout. I think the first team that may, take a flyer on a wideout is down there at 20th, Seattle Seahawks, the Chargers. But he could fall to day 2. And that's not a knock on him. I think that's just a knock kind of on this class as a whole, that this class there's not really a 1A monster out there, but there's a lot of dudes that can develop into having that relevance and being on the field. Again, there's an old adage that you've heard me say a bunch, but the further away you are from the ball, the easier it is to get on the field early. He's going to be in that slot area, so it could be a little more difficult for him to break onto the field. So I see him late first round, if not late first round, early second. And there's plenty of teams, I think, that would be licking their chops to try and sink their teeth in and develop this guy. As for fantasy relevance, it could be a minute. I don't think the success is immediate, but I do think he carves himself out a nice little spot.
Alrighty. All right, Cedric Tillman, the 6'3", 213-pound redshirt senior out of Tennessee, playing wide receiver. And this guy is the big frame, really the kind of body that you would look for to play the X type of position, right? He's a possession type of receiver, big frame, long arms. He's got elite hands, both strong and very soft to it. He's amazing in the contested catch. In fact, kind of some of the things when I was going back and I was watching him play, he might actually be almost a little too physical in some of the contested catches deal there. Like there's a potential that you might see offensive pass interference actually called on the receiver here, the way that he goes after contested catches. He's great in run blocking, run blocks like a light tight end type of deal, more than what we typically see receivers run block at. He is coming off of injury though, right? Like he's had the surgery off season on that. Should be cleared up. We'll see how that, all the medicals really clear on that one. But he doesn't necessarily have like super top end speed, doesn't really have the acceleration to get off the line quickly on this, and he's got a limited route tree as well. This guy's going to be a day 2 receiver. I think that we're probably going to see him in the 3rd. He may sneak up towards the very tail end of the 2nd, but I think that this is probably more of a mid-3rd guy when it's all said and done. And I think that we'll see a really good fit for him be in either with the Cowboys over in Dallas or the Patriots out there in New England. I think both of those organizations could use his skill set very well.
All right, Joanthan Mingo, 6'2", 220-pound senior out of Ole Miss. Mingo is, I guess, first and foremost, the player comp for Mingo is Deebo Samuel, right? He is smooth. He runs good routes. He plays bigger than his size suggests. He is a very good run blocker. He does a good job of transitioning from catch to run. He does have elusive speed. I think his 40 at the combine was not indicative of how fast that he truly is. So I think teams, once they get him on the field in live action, will be pleasantly surprised on what they're getting here out of Mingo. And he has a nose. He has a nose for the football, right? He just seemed to get open when Ole Miss needed him to. So kind of a security blanket style. I think he's more of a Y than an X when it all comes down to it, but he is still going to play outside the numbers there and could be used in some gadgetry plays with having that 200-plus pound frame on him. They could use him similar-ish to how Deebo is used, just in different packages, right? Just to keep the defense honest and see what they're going to throw at him. Overall, I think he needs to work on sitting down in the zone a little bit more. He tends to overrun those gaps and make it a little bit harder on the quarterback than it needs to be. So just a little bit better awareness, understanding where the gaps in that coverage is, and helping him sit down in those gaps. He had a couple drops there in college, right? Led to some consistency issues, but overall, I think that's going to get solved here, getting in and working on this day in and day out, as the NFL does seem to work out some of those inconsistencies on players who are willing to put in the effort. I think Mingo's a back end of day 2 guy. I think I see him going in the 3rd round. I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings took a stab at him with letting Thielen go, having someone play opposite of Justin Jefferson. Yes, you have Osborne there who can play outside or inside, but they're going to have to replace the body that Thielen was. So I think he could be a good fit, and pairing with Jefferson to give Cousins another option there to throw to.
All right, Zay Flowers, 5'9", 182, the senior out of Boston College. And yes, 5'9", 182. That immediately is what is going to be the knock against him, is that he is 5'9", 182. But we've seen smaller guys find their way in the NFL before. He will play in the slot, obviously, with his size. Book on him. He has sudden feet to slip press and race ahead of coverage, and he's able to stair step man coverage out of leveraged positioning.
And he works back to the throw when needed. And here's the best one: very slippery as an open field runner. Unfortunately, 5'9", 182. He's got shorter arms. He's got smaller hands. In a hurry, in too much of a hurry at times, meaning that he maybe gets a little bit ahead of himself and doesn't, think, or doesn't, let the play develop. Doesn't let the ball get on him before he's thinking about the next step, which is the last part there. Teams might have to live with more drops than they would like to see. And that's kind of going back to the previous point. You're going to have to work on that. And teams will need to have some patience with Zay Flowers. He would do well in a concept, a package offense, right? Something that is designed for him to get him the ball, because he is that playmaker type that can really, expose some flaws in a defense, but he's going to need the opportunity to do that. I don't know that happens right away, but he would do well with a creative offensive mind to get him some work early. It would also do him well to be a punt or kick returner. Not that we see a ton of kick returns anymore in the NFL, but would be good to serve him well as a punt returner early. He is in my opinion, a day two guy, maybe even sneaking down into, the fourth or fifth round. So it could be, he could be waiting a little bit to hear his name called. But if he lands in the right situation, he could be one of those weapons over time that, you sneak in there for fantasy purposes as a flex option that, might be able to help you out and get you some rushes, get you some passes caught and points that way. But to me, he is going to need to find the right system to be in, to excel and be relevant for fantasy.
All righty, got Marvin Mims, wide receiver, 5'11", 183 junior out of the University of Oklahoma. And Marvin Mims can line up anywhere as a wide receiver. He played outside, played slot. He, while he played there at Oklahoma, he likely will be a slot when it's all said and done in the NFL, right? Doesn't necessarily have that big frame to line up outside there, but he can play the position well enough to be on the outside at times. He's a very smooth route runner and has the ability to adjust to the ball once it's in the air. One of those that Oklahoma really used him down the field and as a downfield threat a lot, 19.5 yards per catch type of average throughout his career at the University of Oklahoma, and was able to really kind of adjust to those balls, whether they were thrown long, whether they're thrown short. You saw this guy throttle up or down to meet the ball and go get it. Definitely a downfield threat, like I just said, very long stride type of runner, and has the ability to kind of set those afterburners and blow by guys as well. He's got good hands. He can high point the ball. He's a yak monster. Now, not in the necessarily the traditional sense when we talk of a yak guy where they're going to be kind of that slippery and elusive guy that's going to make guys miss and get down the field for extra yards. Where he really accelerates on that is being able to get separation and then just pull away from guys when it's to it. And even when he's running in traffic, he has has kind of that eye set nose for the ball that he can see the guy, find the hole, and get around and to it as well. Like I said, he's not a big frame. He needs to expand the route tree. Oklahoma used him primarily downfield threat as a guy in the NFL. Being a slot guy, he's going to have to work on some of those shorter route combinations in there as well. Oklahoma used him a lot to kind of scheme him open for touchdowns. Not necessarily something that we'll probably see at the next level here. He needs to be able to find the soft spots in the zone underneath as well. Again, right, like it was a burner type of receiver a lot. He's going to be a day two guy. I think that he's got the skills to translate, that we can see him sneak all the way up to mid-second, but I think realistically we're probably going to see him late second, early third type of draft pick here. And I think a good scheme fit for him would be the Chargers or the Steelers. I think both of those teams have some very big benefits for landing a guy like Marvin Mims.
All right, last but not least, we have Quentin Johnson, 6'3", 208 out of TCU. The junior was dynamic for the Horned Frogs, right? He is probably the most natural X in this group of receivers this year. He has 4.4 speed, is extremely powerful wide receiver. His leaping ability, along with his long arms, makes him a very good candidate for contested catch balls, but he has a quick release out of his breaks, right? So it's going to help him on some of those quick stops or quick outs or ins, to be able to create some of that separation. Quarterbacks are, whoever his team is going to enjoy developing this young player, right? His route tree slightly limited at TCU, but nevertheless was very good at what he did. And a lot of his route tree combination that he's going to need to work on is a lot of double move and solid like corner or post move, right? His in and out cutting breaks on the 5, 10, 12-yard in or out breaks. He consistently won those matchups against defensive backs. So they are getting a solid receiver. I expect him to go in the first round, but he's not without his flaws, right? He did have a case of the drops. He is or has been prone to get nicked up a little bit, even with his size. And he does get caught on the line of scrimmage from time to time. He likes to hand fight, possibly a little too much at times. So you get some of these elite corners who can kind of get up in on press coverage and kind of get in his bubble a little bit off the bat. And he's going to have to work on just breaking that hand fighting to get into his route, as opposed to sitting there and fighting with him and kind of throw the timing off of the offense. Overall, I expect him to go middle of the first round, maybe top 10, but I think that might be a little bit of a stretch given this year's wide receiver class. But nevertheless, teams are going to be drafting him to be their number one here going forward. So I think you could possibly see him fall to maybe New England, but I don't think they want to go wide receiver in the first round. So then I'm looking at possibly a Chicago. Again, the Chargers, kind of like Derek alluded on Mims, right? They could step in knowing that they need to start getting this replacement for Keenan Allen ready, because he's getting a little bit older. Don't know how much longer he has left. But then you could also see a team like, the Jets there in the middle, right? If they're going to add someone else, if they get this Aaron Rodgers deal done and continue to add youth and weapons to Aaron Rodgers, kind of argue up, hey, we're going to do something for you in your first season that Green Bay's never done for you. So very high ceiling, possibly the safest floor of this class, but he does have his own issues to work on.
Josh Downs, 5'9", 171, the junior from North Carolina. Again, another smaller slot guy, but he does have experience returning punts, which will benefit him greatly as he gets into the NFL. Book on him: free-flowing athlete, dynamic footwork, instinctive feel for how to elude opponents. That's a great thing. Here's the best quote from the overview from NFL analyst Lance Zierlein. He posted off the charts production as an undersized slot with an oversized will, and that is something that you have to love. Is the confidence of a guy who can outwork some of these defensive backs. Separation burst, gains space through turns and cuts. Footwork and change of direction are sudden and sharp, and slippery is the term they use. Slippery when asked to return punts, and I think that'll fare well for him as he tries to work his way onto the field. Again, another smaller guy, so below average build, can be slowed by a physical press corner, virtually not a run blocker. So he's going to need to be, when he's on the field, probably hope that you aren't running the football too much and getting the ball in his hands as a playmaker. But that's the big thing, is that you hope that you can, again, find a package for him, somebody who can be creative and work him open. A quarterback that can throw him open would do him well as well.
I like it. All right. Couple of questions before we get into our mock draft here. Just kind of call your shot here on some of the wide receivers. So kind of going through it after we've broken these guys down, all of that. Question for the group here. How many wide receivers are going in round 1? So you got to call the number of wide receivers you're projecting to go in the first round and name them.
I'm going to go with 3 this year. I think that teams who feel like if they fall in love with a guy, or if it's their best player at a position of need, right? That these teams have, I don't think we see too many. So I'm going to say 3. It's going to be a little light on wide receiver here this first round, possibly 4. But since we got to call a number, I'm going to say 3 since I have to say it. And it's going to be Quentin Johnson, Jordan Addison, and then Jaxon Smith-Njigba.
All right, Alex, call your number and call your players.
Yeah, three feels safe, right? Three feels like a safe number there. So I hate to. It's not like good radio to just agree with your co-host so much, but I do think that there's a lot of other positions. And we've talked about this wide receiver class and how there's just really not anybody that kind of jumps off the charts here. There's a lot of good depth pieces, a lot of slot players. There's no, I don't want to say there's no Chad Johnson or Chad. Why am I having a brain fart? Detroit Lions, Chad, Megatron,
Calvin Johnson.
Thank you. Sorry.
Chad Johnson, also known as Ocho Cinco.
Yeah. Who was also, he was a game changer in his own right. There's just nobody out there that really, kind of jumps off the page like that. So I will say 3, and I will go with Addison. Why'd you do this to me, Derek? We'll do Smith-Njigba and God, I'll say Zay Flowers. The combine guys, the NFL analysts really love this guy. So I'll say Zay Flowers as well.
Okay. I've got 4. And you guys have named all of them so far collectively. I think that you're going to see Jaxon Smith-Njigba drafted first wide receiver off the board. I think that you're gonna, and it's gonna be a close race between him and Quentin Johnson. I think both of those guys end up sneaking up there towards. I don't think they get top 10, but I think they get the preteens to the early teens type of range there. I think Zay Flowers goes, and I think that Jordan Addison still sneaks into the first round there. So I think all 4 of those guys are going to go this year, but I'm right there with you guys thinking that this is one of those that very well could be as many tight ends as wide receivers get drafted in this first round. It's kind of a crazy thing when you go through and think about it. So
yeah, most of these guys, when you start looking at it, the middle of the second round through the end of the 4th round, right?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of that 2.5 round sample. I think there's going to be a ton drafted there between the back end at day 2 and the first round of day 3. It's just not a lot of top end talent. There's not enough size to distinguish themselves. A lot of these guys, it's going to be how they interview, come down to some silly measurables at times, right? And who these players have in their corner vying for their services or pushing their services towards NFL teams and playing the politic game. So first round's a little light. After that, mid-second, third, all the 4th round, that 2.5 round gap, I think we're going to see we could see 15 go in that range right there.
And realistically, that's more, I don't think that's a knock on this class. I think it's just, the NFL kind of has an embarrassment of riches when it comes to talented young wide receivers right now, right? Talented receivers that are under team control for the next couple of years that aren't really all that expensive either. So I think that, they just become a victim of circumstance more than, more than anything that they have done. There's just a lot out there. I mean, when you think about, some of the top end receivers right now, most on their rookie deal still. So like it's just one of those things where the previous 2 or 3 classes were really strong at wide receiver. And that's kind of hindered, what these teams are looking for right now as they, try to build their team. But there's a lot of players in here that'll be good depth pieces of, guys that can fill in should one of their top end guys go down.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All righty. Well, let's go ahead and let's head on into the old mock draft here. And we'll rock and roll this guy here. So last week we went through and we did a super flex, 3-round super flex on that one. And this week we're going to do it single QB when it's all said and done. And I'll be drafting out of the 1 spot. Alex looks like he's drafting out of the 5 spot, and Kevin back there towards the back end with the out of the 10 slot there. So let's go ahead and let's get this thing rocking and rolling. I'm going to be first up, and this is an easy 101, especially in a single QB. It's Bijan.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm up next at 5, and I will go with Quentin Johnson.
All right. So Zach, excuse me. Zach Charbonnet, I believe I'm saying that right. Charbonnet, Michael Mayer, Keyshawn Butte, Josh Downs. So here's kind of an interesting point in the draft, right? So we have 5 receivers off the board, couple running backs off the board, single quarterback league. So this is the spot where if you're looking for quarterback, right, if you have a roster with an aging quarterback, this is a prime spot back into the first round. Take your guy, whether you want Stroud, whether you want Young, to kind of do that. You can take him right here and feel good about that. I am debating on how some of this is going to work, but I think for the moment here, I am going to take my flyer on Jalin Hyatt. I mean, just because he's a receiver that I feel like I can trust, and there's enough running back depth throughout this draft where you can go ahead and fill in some of that need later on.
I like it.
This is a snake, so
all right.
Wasn't supposed to be, but we'll roll with it.
Even better. So the fact that I waited and then this falls, I'm going to take CJ Stroud right here to kind of round out what I'm looking for. I love it.
I noticed that right when we started that it was a snake, and I was like, oh, I wonder if Kevin sees that, because that could greatly influence, and it worked out in your favor. All right, so after CJ Stroud, there's Zach Evans, Sean Tucker, Cedric Tillman, and Rashee Rice. I could go running back here. Kendre Miller's still available. Tyjae Spears still available. And, I listen to 2 really smart guys on a weekly basis talk about fantasy football players. And one of them seems to be really high on this kid out of Tulane. And I happen to know that he's picking after me. So this is what you call a little snipe here, knowing the room. And Tyjae Spears, welcome to the club.
You have 2 guys on this in the same room with you that are very high on Tyjae Spears there. So that definitely puts a damper on what I was looking to do there, especially with what also came after Tyjae Spears going off the board, where Kendre Miller goes off the board, Anthony Richardson, Marvin Mims, like all of my backups right there also went, because Anthony Richardson here at the end of the second round, I would be happy with that even in a single QB league, simply from the standpoint that he is a cheat code type of player that could bring some big things for your fantasy team, especially down the stretch there. So looking at it, I've got some options that I could go with here, but I think what I'm going to do is I am going to take we're just going to focus very heavy running back here. We're going to take the other Texas running back here, and that's Rashawn Johnson. So we're going to get the both running backs out of the University of Texas here, and then we're just going to keep it in the Big 12 as well. I'm going to go down and I'm going to get a kind of a my guy here in the third round. Also spending some draft capital here on an Oklahoma running back by the name of Eric Gray, who I think will surprise some folks down the stretch.
All right, so after Eric Gray, Dalton Kincaid goes, Dwayne McBride goes, Will Levis goes, and that was kind of who I was targeting. So right now, the quarterbacks that are gone are Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Will Levis. And in my opinion, if you're in a draft and those four guys go and you need quarterback, you might want to look at making a trade. Because I think after this, the quarterbacks that are still available, Hendon Hooker, Max Duggan, Stetson Bennett, I don't think that any of those guys get on the field week one. I think these are the four that have gone. So I'm going to go with kind of a my guy play here as well. A guy that I think will be able to find his way onto the field sooner rather than later. And I'll take Mo Ibrahim.
All right. Luke Musgrave, Tyler Kraft. A lot of tight ends went in this round. Holy shit. 4 tight ends here in this round. All right. So what all that does is it brings it back to some running back, right? Some running back depth. And here's where my hometown guy is. I'm going to grab Kenny McIntosh out of Georgia. I think he has the ability to receive some balls out of the backfield. I don't think he's going to be like a thumper, but he could be a good 1B, especially if he falls into a situation like Philadelphia, right? They just lost Miles Sanders. They brought on, oh shoot, now I'm drawing a blank, guys. I'm sorry.
It's fun, isn't it? Getting old.
Yeah, it's getting old thing. Anyway, regardless. And they run 3 running backs anyway. So I'm going to grab a Kenny McIntosh here, hoping that he lands with Philadelphia because that would fit right in.
Rashad Penny.
That's what it was.
There
Yep.
we go.
And who knows? We could see Zeke there later this week, right? Like he's got him narrowed down.
That'd be dirty.
Yeah, it would.
Just team he killed
Rashad
for
Penny.
years, and then he's going to be their starting tailback.
Right, absolutely. So, all right, so draft is over right after McIntosh, Mallory, and Jarrett ended up going there. So pretty solid draft here. And I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty happy with the fact that I got 3 running backs that all could do some pretty good things here when it's all said and done here through the draft there. Alex, you've got you're kind of a mix there between wide receivers and running backs. And Kevin, definitely the better depth play there with wide receiver, quarterback, and running back there.
And I think with where Kevin was drafting in that snake, that is a really good spot to be. I think if you're in a snake rookie draft, which I don't know that there's too many of those, but
second year of Dynasty, right? So instead of startup Dynasty where it runs, or this is a startup Dynasty rookie basically, right? Because after you get into that, it follows through. So if you're doing a startup this season, it's an idea of how it could look.
Yeah, and realistically, that's a good spot to be because you don't anticipate, the quarterbacks going so soon, especially in a single quarterback league, right? So that's a really good spot. I would be very comfortable in the back third, of a 12-teamer, and knowing that you probably have a shot at a week one starter.
Yeah,
I like it.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts or surprises, anything like that stood out to you in this draft?
I don't love all the tight ends in the third round. I mean,
what is this business?
it's interesting. Good Lord.
Does the CPU know something about the tight ends that we don't?
I don't think the CPU knows anything. And I'm still surprised at how high Darnell Washington's going in rookie drafts. Like you're going to have to be patient. His blocking skill set is going to overpower what teams are going to want to do with him in the passing game to start. So it's going to be a slow transition for him into a red zone weapon, but I think he will get there. You're just going to have to be patient.
Yeah. So very, very interesting. And you can actually see Kevin's breakdown there on Darnell Washington over on the YouTube channel there, and see it. We've got the player profiles over there. Definitely worth taking a look at, taking a peek at, and hitting those up. Make sure that you're hitting the subscribe button while you're there. Guys, any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
We got backs, right? We got backs left. So big show for everybody next week as we get these running backs hammered out, and then then we get into some different fun stuff, right? We'll do some more mock drafts. We'll do some team breakdowns. We're going to start getting into this, start weeding out some players that we want, that we're targeting, maybe some players that we're looking to avoid this coming season for one reason or another. But all your information is going to be able to be found right here on this channel. Same bat time, same bat place, right? But yeah. Hit like, subscribe, follow. We appreciate it.
Yeah, that's we're getting down to it here. Man, this draft, like I know that, we thought after the Super Bowl, there's plenty of stuff to talk about and all this, and then free agency and all that. And now it's just like, why is there such a long time between free agency and the draft? I understand that, in real life, these teams have to do their due diligence and they need all this time to conduct all these interviews and see everything and go out and look at these guys, which brings me to another funny point. I got to see some video, and I'm sure you guys probably saw some of it too, of CJ Stroud's pro day there at Ohio State. And hilariously, right behind CJ Stroud is Frank Reich, new head coach of the Carolina Panthers, which I don't know, maybe it's an indication, maybe it's not, who knows, but he was there. And I swear to you, every time CJ Stroud got the ball, this was all you saw of Frank Reich's face, because he put his phone up and was just recording CJ Stroud throwing the football. It was so funny. He's like true soccer dad, right? Like with the phone out, just recording it. And he kept it on CJ Stroud. Like he kept it on CJ, and then would look to see like what the ball did. But he was so focused, like he wanted his own tape up close and personal to go back and look. So
break down the mechanics, right?
Yeah,
see what his footwork looks like, where his launch point is, what his hips are doing, time that release, and have a bunch of video to be able to do that and upload it onto those Microsoft tablets that Tom Brady despises and beats the hell out of. But yeah, the Panthers had like 11 or 12 people from their organization at that Ohio State pro day, is what I think Sleeper came across with that notification, that they had a ton of people out in Columbus for that pro day.
Which rightfully so. Like there is more than just CJ Stroud out there. We talked about one of them earlier in the show. Like there are dudes on Ohio State that you need to have eyes on and just, make sure you're minding your P's and Q's before you make a sizable investment in them. But man, I wish that draft would just hurry up and get here.
Yeah. I mean, Ohio State's probably got 3 or 4 first round players, players getting their name called on day one there. So definitely worthwhile. But I think you guys are right. I think they were out there for one very big reason with that number 1 pick there. So absolutely.
I will say this though, and this is a lesson learned from previous drafts and draft classes. If you've paid attention to this show, you know that I spent a good deal in Fargo, and I was there for Carson Wentz's pro day. And the only head coach that showed up was Hugh Jackson from the Browns, who wasn't with the Browns for very long after that. But he was the only head coach that showed up. He was the only coach that was there and looked at him. And that was when the Browns had the number 2 overall pick, and then they traded it away to the Eagles. And so I understand that this is a little bit different because, the Panthers already traded into that spot. They pulled the trigger early. and they didn't wait for pro days to go around before they made that call. But just don't, look, there's a lot of chess and mind games being played right now between a lot of these teams. So you're going to get a lot of reports and leaks that aren't actually leaks, but they're intended to throw off everybody else, because when it comes down to it, you never want to let the other guys know what you're doing.
No, but this one's one of two, though, right?
Right. It is one of two. Yeah.
One of two players that Carolina is looking at. And I think here over the next couple of weeks, it's going to become pretty apparent. I don't see how Bryce Young jumps CJ Stroud to be the number one overall pick in this year's draft. I guess we've seen crazier things happen. If the trade hadn't happened, so much smoke, right? Now, like, I almost missed some of the olden days, right, where you knew what the first three picks were because they're working on contracts already by the time the draft hit, and like there was zero suspense. This feels close to that, just with how much attention the Panthers are giving CJ Stroud. But like you said, it could be a little smoke and mirrors. Bryce Young might be their guy. They might, scare us all and draft Will Levis, and then we're all going to go, well, this is why the Panthers are the Panthers.
Very well could be. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Make sure that you're tuning in every Tuesday, 11 p.m. Eastern, when we go live. We'll have all of the player profile on the YouTube channel there as well. youtube.com/@goodoldboysff. And you can find us on all the other socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, @goodoldboysff. But that's going to do it for us. He's Kevin. He's Alex. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe.